9 of the league's 32 teams open camp on July 27th. 3 other teams get a head start. The Super Bowl champion Bucs, who open the regular season against the Cowboys, start early on July 24th. And those Cowboys and the Steelers report on the 21st of July. They kick off the preseason with the Hall of Fame game on August 5th. Let's get ready for some football time now to open up the Fowler Files as we welcome in NFL insider Jeremy Fowler. Jeremy, there's a few defensive backs that are either still free agents or are expecting new contracts. Let's start with Richard Sherman, who's still unsigned. What are you hearing about a possible reunion with Sherman and the Seahawks?
Well, Ryan, I'm hearing that a possible reunion is not totally off the table at this point because Richard Sherman is a West Coast guy. He still has a home in Seattle. I'm told he would be open to returning to the team and being a part of a new Legion of Boom. Now, Seattle hasn't made any moves yet. I'm told that they're going to kind of play this slow. They have Jamal Adams to work out here. That's a big deal. The all-pro safety, they're going to have to make him a top-of-the-market guy. If they can pay him and then allocate other resources, then they can sign a guy like Sherman. But I know they're open to adding some pieces, potentially at cornerback. And these are two sides that are very familiar with one another. Let's go to Stephon Gilmore. Now, he needs a new deal in the worst way, $7 million. He does not want to play on that this year. That's pretty clear, so this will come to a head. But I'm told there really hasn't been much trade traction yet because, you know, the Patriots, they're comfortable with their cornerback group. They haven't really added a lot of pieces there. And as one source told me, do they really want to go into week 4 against their old friend Tom Brady without the former Defensive Player of the Year? So I think closer to training camp, they'll have some talks. Tyrann Mathieu with the Chiefs. This has a chance to get done because I'm told the Chiefs have, they've made clear that they want to do something with Mathieu. That it's not a slam dunk, but a new extension is certainly possible because he's got a cap hit of nearly $20 million, and they consider him a key piece that they want to keep. So they'll chip away at this, see where it goes.
All right, and Mathieu, by the way.
Gilmore saying the last year of my deal, the base salary is a little bit lower because the guarantees were so much higher earlier in the deal. He's almost trying to entice the Patriots back to the negotiating table.
If there's Patriots news, there is nobody to discuss it that is better than Mike Reese. Mike, thank you so much, as always. Ever since coming over from the Bills in 2017, Stephon Gilmore has been incredible. According to NFL's next-gen stats, he has allowed just over 5.9 yards per target when he's the closest defender. That's the best of any DB who has been targeted at least 200 times. Teams complete just 51% of their passes when throwing Gilmore's way. That's the third lowest of any DB over the last 4 years. Impact player. All right, so now we get to our panel, and Mina, I'm going to start with you. Really simple question, but an important one. Just how crucial is Stephon Gilmore to the Patriots defense?
I think he's extremely important, and I think they need to make this work because this Patriots defense field is built back to front, by which I mean the secondary is the strength of the unit. Last year, even when the performance declined precipitously and largely due to, some of the departures in free agency, the opt-outs, injuries, they still finished about average against the pass. That wasn't because of the pass rush. In fact, the Patriots finished second worst in the NFL in pass rush win rate. It's because the coverage was so sticky. And that's not just Gilmore. J.C. Jackson, excellent. Jonathan Jones, terrific slot corner. Safeties are good. You've got a rising edge safety in Kyle Duggar. But surprisingly, behind Gilmore, there's not a lot of depth at outside cornerback. I know they signed Jalen Mills this offseason, but they still need him because this is a secondary that is complicated. They play a lot of man. They're one of the better groups in the league, and I think to lose him in a year when you're obviously so determined to compete, and the Patriots are based on their signings, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Mina, I would say that I've always believed the greatest gauge for a cornerback or how good he is how well he plays in man coverage. No corner in the league over the last 3 years has been asked to play man-to-man coverage more than Stephon Gilmore. Now, I think this is a top 5 defense in New England with Stephon Gilmore. Now, why do I say that? So, a lot of times right now in the NFL, we hear 11-on-11 football when it comes to the offensive side because of the quarterback run game, right? 11-on-11. I think Stephon Gilmore allows the Patriots to play kind of a 10-on-9 defense. You could put him on a team's number 1 receiver on a consistent basis, put him by himself, and then the 10 guys left on defense, if you're not playing a running quarterback, can play 10-9 football. Now, the caveat to the whole situation, I would say, is this. Even if let's say they decided to move on from Gilmore, I still think it's a top 10 defense. Because I think New England is a defense that is potentially going to play a ton of three safeties, what is known as big nickel in the NFL. You mentioned Kyle Duggar. They still have McCourty and Adrian Phillips. So if you put 5 defensive backs on the field and only have 2 of those guys as corners, well, then one could be J.C. Jackson, and one could be Jonathan Jones or Williams, and then those 3 safeties play. So if that's going to be the philosophy of New England, it's going to minimize the necessity for 3 or 4 really good cover corners. J.C. Jackson is absolutely lights out as a corner. So really the whole situation for me comes down to what kind of scheme do they think they're going to play a ton, dependent on how really important he's going to be to their defense this season.
I agree with you, Dan, that I think this is upside for top 5, which is remarkable considering this is the worst run defense in the NFL last year, by the way. To me, the danger of this is, first of all, the Patriots' defense is the strength of the team. It's not the offense going into this year. If you take Gilmore out, while you're right, I do imagine that you're going to have 3 safeties on the field a fair amount. Jackson is really good. He can cover a number 1. Suddenly, it's like, okay, you take him out, and then suddenly another corner has to step up, and the pressure on every single person in the defense increases, including the front 7. Dan, you know that the Patriots' defense, they don't blitz a ton. It's a lot about generating pressure on the inside and sort of making life uncomfortable for the quarterback while the corners hold up in coverage. Without Gilmore, it just gets a little bit harder, and suddenly depth becomes starters, and there's pressure on pieces that you saw previously as just incremental to step up and become disruptive players in this defense.
And as we know, coaches think about now, GMs think about the future and now, and it's worth noting that both J.C. Jackson and Stephon Gilmore are going into contract years right now. You'd think the Patriots are mindful of 2022 and beyond, but Cameron, let's introduce the possibility that Stephon Gilmore could not be a Patriot next year. Maybe his frustration boils over. If he were to be traded, as you canvass the league, what would a potential deal look like?
Field, so obviously you got to gauge other teams' interests. And so when I reached out to league sources, the feedback I got was there'd be at least 3 to 5 teams that are interested in Stephon Gilmore. I guess he's a little older than 30, but he's still a very good player. It's interesting that from everybody I spoke to, they all came back with, I give up a third. I could see a team giving up a third for him. The question is, do you do an extension with him or hold off? But the discrepancy in the conversations I had was what kind of team would be interested in Stephon Gilmore. From some people I heard a team that thinks it's ready to win it all right now, so a Rams, a Chiefs. I also heard a team that might be a little desperate, a team that has a defense that is underperformed, like the Raiders. So it'll be interesting to watch this situation unfold.
Well, one thing we know is that wherever Stephon Gilmore plays this year, he's going to bring good football with him. He and Jalen Ramsey are the only cornerbacks who have been selected to the Pro Bowl in each of the past 3 seasons. It's a good day to be Ryan Ramczyk as the Saints locked up the indispensable right tackle, agreeing to an extension with him that will pay him $96.2 million over the next 6 seasons. If you're